What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another hunting boot camp. This week I am going over how to build a basic duck spread. So this is for all of you just starting out duck hunting. You're interested in it. Maybe you have a few decoys, maybe you have no decoys. This is what you need to start with, and then you can build up to something like this giant pile of decoys here. But these are just the basics, and let's just jump right into it. So my first piece of advice is to start cheap. Don't go out of your budget. Don't take out a loan just to go buy duck decoys. Start cheap, hit up things like clearance sales, Shills and Rogers, and I believe even Max. They have these things called like waterfowl days or something in August, typically before season, and you can find decoys at a discount there. Now, those are also going to be a little higher priced decoys than what maybe some people are willing to spend. So hit up garage sales. Right now is a perfect time. People are having garage sales left and right. Every weekend there's garage sales. So just keep an eye on that. Check Facebook groups, Craigslist. Just check anywhere where people might be selling decoys for cheap. And yeah, they might be, just older decoys, but as long as they float and they have some decent color, that's fine. You're just starting out. You don't need to go with the Cadillac of decoys just yet. But if you want to, more power to you. If you have the funding, if you have the money to do so, go for it. But if not, there's nothing wrong starting out cheap. So the second tip is to adapt. Now this kind of goes hand in hand with starting out cheap. You can buy those cheap Mallard decoys. You can buy all Mallard decoys, and then you can paint them up to look whatever you want. If you want coot decoys, paint those Mallards black, white bill, a little bit of red, you're done. If you want, diver decoys, paint them mostly white, some black tips, and a dark red head and black bill if you want like a canvasback or something. You can adapt those cheap decoys however you want. So that's just another tip to save some money starting out and to diversify your spread. So now we'll move into what you probably actually need. So species. What kind of ducks do you want to have in your decoy spread? When you think about a typical decoy spread that you see in the marsh or on TV or whatever, it's probably something similar to like 2 dozen mallards, maybe a couple Canada goose decoys, and maybe a few other species mixed in. That's really starting to pick up. More and more people are diversifying their spreads, but mallards are by and large the foundation of a decoy spread. So just starting out, what do you need to pull ducks into you? I would say, just starting out, you're wanting at least 1 to 2 dozen Mallard decoys, especially if you can find them for cheap. Build your base, and then you can upgrade over time, and you can diversify. But build your base with those Mallard decoys. 1 to 2 dozen Mallard decoys, maybe a half dozen of something like teal or wood duck or diver decoys or coots. And what that next half dozen of decoys is going to be is largely dependent on what flyway you're in, what state you're in, what area you're in. It's going to go to your scouting. What do you see in your area? Try to be as realistic as possible. Try to mimic what birds are out there, what the conditions are out there, how the birds are behaving, and that includes what species flock together. So go back to your scouting for additional species, and even look at maybe 4 to 6 goose decoys if you can find for cheap. Now, goose decoys are going to be a little more expensive. You can get by with even 2 goose decoys. And if I'm going out duck hunting, I'll always take at least a pair of goose decoys for 2 reasons. 1, confidence decoys. Ducks love goose decoys. Ducks love them. 2, just in case I see any geese. It's a lot easier to call geese in when there's decoys out there that they can see. So in summation, Mallard decoys, 1 to 2 dozen. Some other species that's common in your area, and you can mix it up a little bit. It could be widgeon and gadwall or wood duck or whatever, but I'd get about a half dozen of those. So you're looking at maybe 18 to 30 decoys tops, and a couple goose decoys if geese are common in your area. I guess that goes into my next point, kind of, is how many decoys do you need? Now, I just said, about 18 to 30 will work. You can definitely go way over that. You can put out a huge spread, probably not gonna hurt anything. You can even put out a smaller spread. I've ran as few as like 6 decoys and still had luck. It's gonna depend on the areas that you hunt and how you're hunting. Now, if you can drive your truck up to this little hole you've got and you just unload all your decoys, you can take a lot more. If you're packing in or taking them on your kayak, it's going to depend on how much you can fit in your kayak, or how much you can fit on your back. You know, you don't want to overexert yourself. That is no fun, especially if you got to walk a ton. I've done it. Shoot, I used to carry these before I had my decoy cart, and by the end of the day, I mean, it's not bad going in because you're all pumped up. You're like, yeah, let's go hunting. You know, we're all excited. On the way back, especially if you got a limited ducks and even a few geese, and you're carrying everything on your back, that just gets exhausting. So you want to limit your spread numbers to the type of area you're hunting and the style you're hunting. So if you're packing in or kayaking or field hunting or whatever, that's going to dictate how many decoys you can take. But as a general rule of thumb, 18 to 30 typically is a good number. Next up, weights. So this is going to go back into the style that you hunt. You got to decide what kind of weight or decoy rigging system you want. So myself, I'm a big fan of these Texas rigs right here. The decoy just slides on them up and down. They all go to a clip like so, and they're easy. I mean, they don't really tangle up. You don't have to worry about wrapping them. Keeps your hands a lot warmer when it's cold because you're not, you know, wrapping decoys, and they don't get tangled up in a bag. That's personal preference. One bad thing is, you know, they typically use these egg weights. If you're hunting a river system with a strong current, you either got to go heavier weight, or you do the traditional method where you wrap it around the keel and it's just like a little lead weight or like a hook or something that's gonna catch stuff and hold in that current a lot better. So I can't really tell you one way or the other. I prefer the Texas rig system. Other people might prefer the conventional system, and if you're doing conventional system, you're gonna have to have them in a bag as well. So then you'll have to carry a bag either in your kayak or on your back or in your cart or whatever. But with these, you just throw them over your shoulder and away you go. So the final component in a basic decoy spread, and you need to have this, is motion. So if you're hunting and you got a good wind, you've got everything you need. You've got your decoys moving around, the wind, you know, the wind and water, they're blowing the decoys around, you're good to go. However, it's not always perfect conditions when you're hunting. Everyone will tell you that. When you have those still days or even just a light breeze, might need a little bit more motion on the water. It's good to have something that can cause that motion. So you can go two ways with this, and it goes back to your budget. You can go get a spinner, and some states these aren't even allowed. As far as motorized spinners, there's wind spinners. I've never used one myself, so I don't really know how good those work. But the motorized spinners, they're pretty simple. You know, you flip a switch and they turn on, and some even have remotes. These were very popular and very lethal when they first came out. Now birds have gotten a little more wise to them, but they can still be very effective. Teal, for instance, love them. Some days birds just dump in, and if you don't have one, you're not going to get the birds in. Other days, you know, it flares them. It really is a day dependent thing, and you could talk to a bunch of different guys and get a bunch of opinions. But they are a little pricier, so you can go the other option and get a jerk string or like a motion ducks type system. So just starting out, jerk string's pretty easy to rig up. It's just a string. You put some decoy clips on it and put an anchor out there, or you can even use your decoy weights as the anchor, and then you just clip it to the front and you're just pulling it, you know, 3-4 decoys, getting some ripples in the water so it doesn't look like a sheet of glass. The motion ducks also, it's gonna be a little pricier than that, but it works amazing. I mean, it creates a whole different pattern than the jerk string, and you can just keep your decoys on it, throw it out there, and away you go. So once again, that goes back to your budgeting, but motion is a very important part of your decoy spread, and without it, it can be very difficult to get those birds pulled all the way in. And that brings us to an end. That was duck spread basics. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it helped you guys if you're still building your duck spread. If you're not knowing exactly where to start, hopefully this is a good jumping off point for you. If you have any other questions, drop them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them, and maybe some other people will too. And be sure to give me a thumbs up. Really appreciate it. Subscribe, and we'll catch you out there, guys. See ya.